Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the FTD webinar titled Effective Branding Strategies to Build Your Business. We're delighted to welcome today's featured presenter, FTD Education Consultant, and Jordan AIFD. We have two quick housekeeping notes. First, check out the handout section on your GoToWebinar control panel to download a PDF of today's presentation. Second, Anne will be answering questions throughout the webinar. Simply type your questions in the question box on the control panel. All right, let's get started. Welcome, Anne.
Hey, thanks, Emily, and welcome, everybody. This is a topic that I have been presenting for FTD for many, many years, and it's one that I find to be the most beneficial to so many florists, because it's the one thing that we can definitely control, and we can definitely find the results of our efforts. And so I'm sure in this presentation we have mostly shop owners, managers, maybe some head designers, and hopefully some staff members and employees too. But the ones that can really make the changes, probably the role is more into management. So whoever is out there, whatever your questions are, please just feel free to dive right in and ask them. I think that the reason why I think this topic is so important is because, again, we have control over it. Now, to think of what the brand is going to be and why we should even be considering it is because it's the absolute perception of what your clients have of you. And you're going to create it, or they're going to conjure it up in their mind. And it's better that you take control over what you want it to be than to have them create it in their own mind. Let's get into that a little bit more. So perception, the receiving of knowledge of external things through a medium of the senses. I love that. The idea and also in the image, to conceive or to have something come to mind and represent in your mind, a picture that just comes to mind when you think of that brand. Now, branding is that intangible thing. It's nothing that you can hold in your hand. It's not something anybody can purchase. It's your uniqueness. It's your actual thumbprint. That's what you're thinking of with branding. Now, I think too with branding that it can be a lot simpler than we're thinking it's going to be. And also, it's not just for the big guys. This isn't something that's just for big business or corporations. Small brands, look at this lovely flower shop, can have it too. All right, a well-planned brand. You might have all these ideas of what you want your brand to be, just cycling around in your head, but you really got to have it well planned. And so I'm going to take all those things that you're thinking and let's get it into a plan. First of all, and most importantly, it's going to deliver a message, a very clear message about who you are. It's going to confirm your credibility and connect your target emotionally. Now, this is where I really can explain to you what it means to be connected emotionally to a brand. If anybody watches the Super Bowl, I don't, but I always watch the ads. And I can tell you, when you're watching the ads from the Super Bowl, the very next day you might be with your friends and family and you will say, wasn't that one funny? And you'll quickly remember the ones that were funny to you. But the ones that connected with you emotionally, you will remember for a very long time. I can remember it was a Budweiser commercial a long time ago about the Clydesdales and the little dog, and there was the one with the donkey. They connected with me emotionally. That's when branding really, really works. And of course, with Budweiser, we can talk about what happened in the past year with them going off brand too. So that's when things go awry a little bit. Now, also, it motivates the buyer. It motivates the buyer to come see you, come visit you on your website, maybe come into a brick and mortar, but hopefully it motivates them to purchase. It cements customer loyalty. Now, customer loyalty to me means a lot. And I work with an awful lot of florists in helping them do just this and create a brand. Now, if you think about it, with customer loyalty, I want you to think now what, not necessarily who you support for businesses, but who you left recently. Who did you move on or move away from because they were not, you didn't, they lost you in their brand somehow. So I can think of one recently. The reason why I left that brand that I was very loyal to was because of an indifference that I had with an employee that they had. Another place that I always went to shop, I don't shop there any longer because they didn't price their product. I couldn't tell, and I'm not one that's going to go and ask, how much is this? I want things priced clearly. Another one, it was something I found on social media. I thought, I'll give them a try. Their posts are really, really fun. I'll give them a try. And I went, and they bored me once I got there. And so that's why all these things have to be very, very consistent. So don't just be thinking of the brands that you're very loyal to. Think of the brands that you left and why you left them, because it might coincide with something that you're doing within your own company. A good brand will clarify your identity and give you value and benefits to your employee. An employee who understands your brand can help you cultivate your business. And so if you can clearly identify your brand, and hopefully I'm going to help you do that today, it's great to express that with your employees so that they can help you with that. And if you don't do it, your clients are going to do it for you. And we don't want to confuse them at all as to who you are. Now, if you could write a paragraph or even just some written words about what your brand is, what would you be describing? Could you describe who's on your team? And so if we're talking about your team, would your team identify with these words? Are they friendly? Are they creative? Are they outgoing, caring? Are they customer obsessed? That's my favorite one. Are they knowledgeable about your product? Are they enthusiastic and loyal? Reliable, kind, committed, focused, and energetic? Does that describe your team? I personally love beautiful packaging. Good packaging gets me every single time. Wonderful signage. There's so many creative ways we can use that. What kind of products should we carry? So now I'm talking about, for the florist shop, the flowers and the plants. So for me, it goes directly to who I'm partnering with, who the wholesalers are that I'm partnering with. And even such as the wire service, you're partnering with FTD. So that's all part of brand as well. What kind of marketing? We'll touch on that a little bit later too, but what kind of marketing? Marketing right now is almost all social media marketing. If you follow the trends, people are getting their news, their information, not so much from, definitely not newspapers or the television. They're getting it moreover from podcasts and social media. I know me, and I'm an older demographic. That's where I get all my information now, is more from, I find it more reliable and more to the messaging that I want to receive. And so marketing now has changed so much than even just a couple of years ago. We'll touch on more on that in a little bit. And who do I want to attract specifically? And that goes back to your demographics, and I'll show you how to find that information so that you can see who's in your area and who do you want to attract in your store. What kind of experience do I want my clients to have? This was always so important to me when I was in retail. I know for me that if in my store I didn't hear the word wow, I wasn't happy. And I would change everything around till I could hear that word constantly by my clients. I wanted them to go into my cooler and say, holy cow, seriously, this is so cool. I wanted them to see my displays and say, yep, she's done it again. And so Is that what you're hearing in your store? Are you always hearing those types of compliments? Because all of that means that you've collected and you've conjured up a brand and an image, and you're following it through within your displays and your packaging and your staff. Successful traits of a good brand. Number one is purpose in itself. And so through all these things you can see on that image, through design and value. And remember, when we talk about value when it comes to flowers, a lot of people think that value means price and cost. And I know cost of flowers is just so outrageous right now, but you need to understand through SAF research that our customers want value. They're not always thinking about what it's going to cost them. They want value. And by value for the floral industry, that means longevity of product. They're more apt to buy more flowers when they know they have value. So a good care and handling process is of the utmost to give them that value. A successful brand is agile, and it makes changes when it needs to. We can see that in so many different other companies where they've made not always big drastic changes, but some tweaks, and small companies can change quicker to be unique. We're creative people anyway, and so for us to be unique, we know that's a must, because flowers are absolutely available all over the place. And so to get people to come to us, we must be unique in our brand. Consistency. We have to stand for something and not falter from that. Oh, tell your story. People will connect to a story that means something to them. Remember my example of what we connect to emotionally? It's the same thing. Tell your story. Tell about your beginnings, about your struggles, about your successes. When people connect to that, it'll help solidify your brand. Keep the message that your brand is trying to convey as simple as possible. Now, some examples of that would be when you can identify what makes you tick, and it's the it factor. Now, we've used that word for people that have the it factor. So if I said share in one word, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Bono, that might be another one. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Something comes to mind instantly. Think of the people that have cultivated brands. Martha Stewart might be one, and there's so many more going on and on and on. And I would believe that some people within our industry have that as well. If I say Deb De La Flor, anybody in the industry just knows and cherishes her. And if you talk to Deb, she is a living, walking brand. Ian Prosser would be another one. If you meet Ian, or if you've taken workshops with Ian, you know that he himself has worked since the beginning to create himself as a brand. So that's what I keep coming back to. It isn't about corporation. It's not about just for big business. It's about for an individual florist shop. Now, if you're trying to make your brand more about your brick and mortar or more about your cyberspace, there's ways to do that. But it's a lot easier than you think. And think about brands that you're loyal to. And why are you loyal to them? Branding means that it doesn't mean that you're just luring people to you. It's part of it. But the bigger piece of that isn't just that you're luring people to you. It means that you want to be the best among them in that field. And so you want that preference. You want to be the preferred florist over all the competition. Now, I'll tell you brands that I'm loyal to, and I've probably been loyal to most of these brands for the past 40 years of my life. And so they must be doing something well. So I'm thinking about Levi Jeans. My demographic, of course, it's Levi Jeans. Hellman's Mayonnaise, Chevrolet, Crown Royal, Brighton handbags, Dr. Scholl's sandals, American Airlines, and now my iPhone. Those are brands that I probably won't ever leave. Why? Because of the consistency since my first purchase. Now, think about that in your flower shop. From somebody's very first encounter with you, be it over the phone, inside a brick and mortar, or even an online purchase, can it be that alluring that you would not leave that brand for up to 40 years? Think about that. So after this clinic with you, if you would just sit down and write the brands that you're loyal to and why are you loyal to them? Use marketing strategies that are engaging and interactive. I know there are so many things within the FTD University and on FTD YouTube that you can go and access that speak to this. Last year, they had a wonderful series on marketing strategies. There's information out there for you absolutely everywhere that curtails itself to us, to the floral industry, and it's right there at your fingertips. Now, let's get into it a little bit deeper. Okay, this is the #1 survival skill to me of any florist and of our industry in total. I believe it's attracting millennials and Gen Z. So we're talking about a demographic that is more than twice the size of my demographic, the baby boomers. And so with that, you know that this, and furthermore, they love our product. And so to find out who they are, what makes them tick, how to get them into your business. If you just read this statement, millennials will become loyal to a small business that gives back to the community or supports a cause that they believe. I find that to be so powerful. Just that statement alone, if you can communicate that wonderful message, and isn't that an emotional message as well? Gen Z, they're eager to relate and to support a small business over a large corporation. That's us too. And so just by doing a simple Google search that tells you who these people are, what they buy, why they buy, it's absolutely fascinating to me. And I believe in employing this generation and finding out what makes them tick, because they're the ones that are going to be able to help you with any type of a cyber brand or a cyber image and a lot of your social media posting. And so let's embrace both these demographics, and then make sure that we are marketing to them and building a brand that includes them very, very, very specifically. I believe in it highly. I have notes. Let me flip the page here. Let's see, Tom Peters, I absolutely love him. Let's talk about our staffing now. What makes any business tick is super folks who trust one another and care about one another and are committed to work together to create great outcomes for each other and their customers. And the rest of that sentence is, or the next sentence is, no matter what. So does that describe who the first person is that I'm going to meet when I walk into your flower shop or call your flower shop? Does that describe them? If you think about the economics of who we employ, if you have your cost of goods, your overhead, and what you spend on payroll, it's a big chunk of money, and I know it is. And so for that, are the people that are working for you, do they emulate that statement? I think it's super important. Customers are going to have an image of your company and your product if you create it or if they do. And so what are you going to do to make sure that you're in control, you're in charge of that image that people are going to see? Has anybody else just quit a brand? I just quit. It was actually a car rental company. I had been a loyal member. In fact, I was a platinum member, had in 13 years of working with them and getting rental cars for them. For what I do, I rent an awful lot of cars. Over 13 years, I'd never had a single complaint. And I just had a complaint about a lost item, just trying to find a lost item. And I was treated so poorly that I left that brand and went to another company. That's all it took. That is all it took. And so, are you allowing your staff to problem solve in a way that's fast and quick so that you don't lose these people? Think of why you may have left a company, why you're not going back to that restaurant, why you're not going back to that spa or whatever. What was it? And if you make a list of all the reasons why you're not purchasing from them anymore, not going there any longer, then is that actually happening within your flower shop too? Okay, so now we're going to determine who our target is. Now, this is a lot simpler than it thinks. Sometimes when I'm in a business workshop and we talk about demographics, people start to, their eyes glaze over. They really want to talk about design and see pretty flowers and not want to talk about this part of the segment. But I find this to be just as fascinating. And this is where you can use your creativity as well. Now, bear in mind before we dive into this that I did a bunch of research since Janet and FTD asked me to present this to you. And so to get caught up on what's going on right now within brand building. And one statement came out from Forbes magazine that they said that branding is more important now than it ever has been in the past. Because if we don't develop that brand, if you're using social media, for instance, how fast are you on a social media site and you're doing this scrolling thing, right? It's just scrolling, 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 and something finally catches you? Are your posts that dynamic? Because with social media, things are changing so fast. We really need to be conscious of all of that. Now, the demographics are going to give you this type of information. They're going to tell you the average age of your clients, no, excuse me, of your demographic, who's in your area. You can look at this by zip code, the gender, and what their interests are. Now, you can adapt your brand to fit those things. Let's take a look at what it is. Go back to the census data. Now, the latest census data that we have is 4 years old now. So they probably be starting a new census, I believe, in April of this year, because the last census was 2020. And that was during COVID too. So that kind of fluctuated a lot of things from what it was prior to that. You can get this information from your city hall or your town office. You can get it from your Chamber of Commerce, or you can just simply do a Google search. Now, what I did just last week, and this took me 18 minutes, I did a Google search, and it took, in 18 minutes, I found out who was in my community. And so this is what we're going to look for. Prior to doing this, this is an exercise I want you to try. I want you to think outside of your own business, because sometimes we get this tunnel vision of our own business and we can't see outside of it. So I want you to, just for a little bit of time when you can think and give yourself the opportunity of thinking outside of the flower industry and your specific business. I want you to think about those restaurants, the salons, the gift shops, the spas, whatever else, the places that you go because it moves you and you connect to it emotionally. What inspires you about that brand? Is it something about their staff? Is it something about their logo? Is it something about their social media posts that captures you? For me, it's usually the staff, because that's who you're going to have a face-to-face or a phone call conversation with. And how do they reach out to the community? If we know that's something that the millennial generation is going to look to, how do other restaurants and spas, how do they reach out to the community? And is that something that you could take and maybe modify to your own brand? And why do you favor them above other competitors? I want you to look at those questions before you dive into the next part of this exercise, which is finding out who you are and who's in your community. Okay, so I live in rural Maine. Here is a snapshot of where I live. If you look at the lake forward and all those docks, I live just a little bit south of that. And so you can see it is very, very rural. Now, I recently worked with somebody who had the opportunity to open a brand new flower shop and gift shop. And she happened to have 3 different locations in mind. And this is the very exact exercise she and I did to find out which areas would fit her better. Now, a lot of us, we're not opening up new stores. We have stores. And so this information is going to help us curtail our brand specifically to who's in our area. So let me find out who's in my community. And not a whole lot of this surprised me, and it might not surprise you either. So just by doing a zip code research in Google, it took me no time at all to find out the population of my community. There you go. Told you it was rural. But now in the summertime, the population triples because of, as you can see, it's beautiful, and Maine is called vacation land for a reason. Okay. My community is 58% male. That I did not know. 61% of my population is age 18 to 64. I'll tell you what, that's where the buying power comes from. That was certainly good news for somebody who may open a business. 90% white, average income, $43,000. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, there's also you can do further research as to other little micro demographics, because I know a lot of the homes around the Lakes region, their average incomes are a lot higher than that. So we're talking about averages. And that 81% of people live in single unit homes. That's vital information too. And this went on and on and on and on and on for pages. From pages. And I'm just bringing up what I thought was pertinent to what we might talk about today. Now, there's another demographics study that I think not only is it hysterical, it's truly, truly funny, but it's fun. And so, oh, sorry, I missed a bullet. That there's a high education rate too for my community. So in my community, highly educated, low income, low population. Okay, that just happens to be a zip code. Okay. When you have time, because this is a lot of fun, just put in Claritas free zip code demographic information. It'll bring you to this website called Claritas. And when you put in that zip code, it'll bring up this segmentations of who is in your community. And then they make it kind of fun, but that's information you get for free. If you pay a subscription to Claritas, you can get a lot more information. But I found everything that I needed on these free websites. And so let's go a little bit deeper into who's in my community, in my zip code. Most likely to own a Chevy, most likely to shop at Hobby Lobby, most likely to go hunting. It's all about recreational living where I live. Eat at Cracker Barrel, listen to country music, and stay at the Comfort Inn. Now, does that surprise anybody with a household income of $43,000, right? But if that's who the zip code is where I am going to open a flower shop, I have to embrace that. You can't make it what it isn't. And so now, in just 18 minutes of research, I have quite a bit to go on. Here, Janet Justice has helped put together these slides, which I find to be hysterical. So there's the Chevy, my brand. I love Dolly. Who doesn't love Dolly and big hair? Adorable flower shops and really lovely, well thought out displays. Okay. After you've done even just that much, and if you can spend if I can spend 18 minutes doing this and you can spend the afternoon doing this, and then what I'm going to suggest to you do next is make a vision board for yourself. Make it fun. I just went on Pinterest and just Googled some things. If I were really to open a flower shop with that demographic, do all these pictures look like it would work there? Does that look like a person that I would hire? If I would have a dress code, and I would have a dress code, does that look like what might fit the demographic that we just ran a very quick demographic research on it? From the signage to the clever packaging, the displays, all of it. That the packaging, particularly the one with the box with the handles, that to me is, it just would be part of my brand. And so you can see that this is something that you can bring your staff into as well. So this is where we can absolutely have some fun with it. After you get this far, can you just then make some sentences about who you're attracting? Even if it's not a sentence, if it's just a word that goes with these snapshots, could they be words like friendly service, best value for product, funky displays, fun and unexpected, delightful, I love that word, fresh and bright. And for me, the word would be quirky. When I had my flower shop, that's what I liked. I liked things to be very quirky and unexpected. And that's where I had to change displays and change things all the time, because I never wanted anything to be preconceived. I wanted things to be different every time people came in. So that kept them coming back. Now, even if you were going to advance from words into sentences about your design work, you can see these designs. I got them from the FTD website. They clearly would fit a brand such as this. So we're talking about garden flowers. We're talking about clear glass vases. We're talking about those, I love those little wooden boxes, and anything in more current and up-to-date wicker might even work here. And so this is how a brand gets established. Now, working within a brand that you already have, and you just need to tweak it a little bit, a vision board, I think, is the way to go. We're creative and very visual people anyway, and so this is a great way to do it. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I love Steve Martin. Anyway, be so good they can't ignore you. I love that. Right above my desk. I just want to read that every day so that I know my mission every time I unlock that store and walk in and address my staff and meet with my clients. Do you know that within 6 seconds, of meeting you, people will have a solid impression of who you are. Now think about who your clients are meeting every time they pick up the phone or come into your store. Even more staggering is research will suggest within 1/10 of a second, they'll begin to determine your traits such as trustworthiness. Now, 1/10 of a second, that's this, right? We're forming opinion every time we do this and scroll through social media, and then we finally say, yeah, this is worthy of my time. I'm going to click on this and find out what this is all about. I'll tell you, when I first started teaching business for FTD, so this is a long time ago, 97, it was 17 seconds we had before somebody would determine something about us. And now look how this is. Within the first 6 seconds, people are forming opinions about you. And so that's why I think when you're talking about branding, it's not just your logo and flashy colors on a logo. It's not just your beautiful, pretty packaging. You're going to be thinking about your staff more than anything. Remember that percentage of every dollar that you could tear right off, because that's what payroll is. And then, are they really giving you your bang for your buck as far as how they're addressing every single customer service opportunity. Oh, Charles Darwin, no, it's not the strongest of the species that will survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. And that's what we're talking about right now. If you're just starting out, or you already have an established flower shop, what do you really need to change? And how much time, money, and effort are you willing to put into it to create that brand? Large corporations believe it's the number one most important thing that they can do to generate more business. Do you believe that too? I believe the floristry has two things that they have going for them: their brand themselves and design. We have control over every design that goes out of our store that will make an impression to get people to come back. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today. This workshop is bits and pieces of it. You can download this and please do the exercises I'm suggesting. Number one, think outside your flower shop. Think of other brands that you're loyal to and why. Look into your main street. What restaurants do you go back to all the time, and why? Ask your staff, the ones you trust the most, why do they keep going back to these brands? And see if you can get information that way. And then go into these exercises. Google your zip code and the demographics that we have from the census, and then try that Claritas, because not only is it fun, it's very, very enlightening. And you might find some things within a strategy of who's there in your zip code. You can't control that. You can't say, I want to be this in this demographic, when your demographic is going in a different direction. So it behooves you to look at that, know that, and make sure that your brand emulates that. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to be right here and sit through you with it and answer anything.
Thank you, Anne. As she
No,
said,
you're welcome.
for any final questions, you can type your questions in the question box on the control panel. We do have one question that came in. So what is the best way to go about targeting a new audience based on the demographic information found? So I take this as somebody, like, it's very different than what they thought. So what's the best step forward to learn?
Oh, okay. So the demographic is different than you thought. All right. Well, let's say, okay, for instance, in the demographic that I brought up, my personal zip code, me being kind of surprised at, number one, the low household wages, and that it's mostly men in my community. And then the good news of the average age that who was in my community. Taking those things right there, just those, and then what appeals to them. And so you could do this several ways. One way that I was very successful in doing this when I had my flower shop. I had a very, very successful flower shop. I worked really hard in developing a brand. When you can ask a lot of questions to your customers, when they come in and you literally watch everything that they do, what they're drawn to, I would take it to the nth degree. And I do this with flower shops that I consult in, and I advise you to do this to know. I would separate my cooler in 3 styles and looks. On one side would be polychromatic arrangements. They would be tall and they would be short, polychromatic, mixed colors. Straight ahead would be analogous. So let's say it's spring, so maybe it's oranges to yellows. Arrangements, tall and short, all kinds of price points. And then on the other side of my cooler would be monochromatic arrangements. And they would be tall, short, various price points. And I would track, and I would have my staff track who bought what when they came into the store. So I would say, just roughly, man, possibly in his 40s, buys tall polychromatic arrangement, but spends $60. Next client, female, age 30, monochromatic arrangements, low, short, the tight one around maybe a bubble bowl, something like that. And I would keep track of that. And you're guessing, right? So you're guessing their age, you're guessing, well, more about them. But it gave me very specific information as to what they would spend, what the market would bear, and what specifically they bought. And I found out, and I almost always find out when I'm in any demographic, that men like polychromatic arrangements, tall and showy, just lots loaded with color, where women, particularly younger women, are going to buy analogous or monochromatic arrangements, and they're going to want them low and free form. And so that's just one exercise that you can do, but that's free. That's free information. Did you just know just by tracking what's going on? And so that's one idea. To be very specific and something that you can do right away. And you don't have to do it. You can task your staff with doing that and just keeping a customer journal. It gives you great information. So if you know from that information that men will typically spend this, an age demographic such as this is going to spend otherwise, because you can't always find that information out when they're shopping online. You can't really know a whole lot of information about who they are specifically. But I would love that challenge. And I hope if that's true for you, that you're finding out within your flower shop that you've got some challenges there. Your customer base isn't exactly who you thought they are. I would accept that challenge, embrace that challenge, dive into who they really are, and you can make your flower shop, curtail it to them, make them feel just so wonderful and welcoming when they come into your store. Just know you can do it.
Great. That sounds like a fun project to me.
Yeah, yes.
It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. A recording is going to be available on demand on the FTD Mercury Network YouTube channel. For more education programming from FTD, please visit ftdi.com to register for upcoming free webinars and design shows and to view any past education programs. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.